The biggest thing stopping you from completing your comic is you. And we're going to change that in this video. But before I get into that, I want to explain what this video isn't. This is a quick fire round of advice that I generally think is bad and shouldn't be taken literally. This isn't about working harder than you are right now. It's not about taking fewer breaks or neglecting important aspects in your life, like sleep and relationships. It's not about studying specific things or taking this course or signing up to some idiot YouTuber's Patreon. Actually, scratch that last part. Instead, in this video, I'm going to talk about some of the things that I've spoken to people in my Discord about their comics, and hopefully that's going to help you too. I'm not going to mention any of the names of the people in my Discord, so if you're watching this, then don't worry. I'll always protect your secret identity, Marvin. Oh wait, one of my patrons on Discord said that they had trouble with time management. This isn't uncommon and it impacts the majority of us. It's hard to find the time to do the things that we want to do because life is busy. But this was a little bit different. It's not that they didn't have time, it's that the time that they did have, they weren't working on their comic. What they'd do is spend the few hours they had on studies and sketches, and they'd run out of time and energy when they were ready to start their comic. And the reason why they spent so much time on studies and sketches and not so much time on their comics is because they didn't trust their drawing abilities. And again, that's very common, very normal. So they were overcompensating with studies in an effort to bring their skill level up to a point where they felt that it was acceptable. Now, there's nothing wrong with trying to improve your drawing skills. In fact, it's entirely necessary to do that to make better comics faster. But here's the kicker. You're never going to be entirely satisfied with your drawing skills. In fact, I did a little poll in my Discord of 2 drawings I'd done of the footballer Son Heung-min, because he's a little cutie. The first one I did about 4 or 5 years ago, and it took me hours to complete. And the second one took just under an hour. I asked them simply which one of these that they preferred or thought was better, and 100% of them said the left one. That proves that there's been at least a little bit of improvement in my drawing skills and I'm able to get better results faster. But am I satisfied with that drawing? No, not really. I could have spent more time with the construction and made bolder choices with the colors. I could have chosen a more interesting composition for the illustration in the first place. But if I had spent hours worrying about all that stuff, then I wouldn't have a drawing in the first place. And if you spend hours and hours studying and sketching without actually working on your comic, then guess what? You're not going to have a comic. And you'll never know which areas of the comic are your weak areas and which areas of the comic are your strong areas. So what can you do to get out of this funk? Well, the first thing to realize is that you don't have a skill issue, you have a perception issue. You're so wrapped up in this idea that you need to be better than you currently are, you're actually sabotaging your progress by doing mindless studies and sketches. And one of the main reasons why this mindset is so difficult to get out of is because you're right. You will improve your drawing skills if you do studies and sketches rather than just working on your comic. That is a fact. But you won't be a better comic creator if you don't make comics. And if you do make comics, you'll also become a better artist because you're forcing yourself to do drawing after drawing after drawing. So point number 1 is that studying the fundamentals makes you a better artist, but making comics makes you a better artist and comic creator, so prioritize comics. The next thing that we need to do is we need to make peace with the skills that we have today instead of idolizing the skills that we could have in the future. It's great to look ahead and plan and have goals and all that good stuff, but sometimes that can also minimize the abilities that we have today and make us feel bad. You are the best artist you've ever been right now. Just let that settle in, because I think that's quite cool. Think about when you first learned to draw in 3 dimensions, or when you designed your first character or wrote your first outline for your comic. And now think about where you are now. Think about what you could teach that person about writing and design and storytelling and drawing. These are skills that you've developed. And in a year, 2 years, 5 years, you would have refined those skills even further to a whole nother level. And you'll probably have similar thoughts then that you do right now, that you're not quite good enough or that there are significant gaps in your knowledge. And that's probably true. But it doesn't mean that you're not good enough to create comics, because everybody is good enough to create comics regardless of their perceived skill level. I know that I have big gaps in my knowledge. I know that there are things that I do badly and things that I do well. And I know that I'll be a better comic creator next year than I am right now because I'm actively making comics. My current comic, Flowers and Shadows, will not be as good as Flowers and Shadows 2 if I decide to do a sequel or whatever new comic I make beyond that. And I find that quite exciting. So point number 2 is to make peace with the fact that your skill levels are where they are And stopping yourself from making comics just so that you can get to that next level is not going to help you. Making comics is going to make you better. But it gets better than that, because we're going to go through why making comics will make you a better artist, so that you don't need to be anxiously working on studies and sketches and neglecting your comic. Every few pages, say around 2 to 5 or so, take note of the things that you struggled with the most. Let's say that you found hands the most frustrating thing to draw. It could be anything, and it's probably multiple things, but just pick the thing that's annoyed you the most. That's usually a good indicator of where your weakest areas are. I know that I get frustrated when I don't understand things as well as I think I should. For me, it's coloring and but this isn't about me, so let's move on. So hands annoy you. Well, now you know what to study next. So there's a bit of structure and order to your education and studies. Instead of being dictated to by a book or a YouTube video, you're learning based on your personal needs. So with that in mind, the next time you sit down to work on your comic, set a timer for 25 minutes. Then study hands or whatever it is that you found frustrating until the timer beeps. Pause for 5 minutes, and depending on how much overall time you have to work on your comic, either work on your comic or do that once more. This is the pomodoro technique, and it's useful for studying for exams, but it's also really useful for studying art. Also, you can use it while you're working on your comic. You can see this in action in this video where I used the pomodoro technique while working on this page to great effect. Your back and neck will thank you, and you'll be able to work for longer periods of time if you take regularly scheduled breaks. What we're trying to achieve here is the best of both worlds. On the one hand, you're improving your skills with these specific studies based on the needs of your comic, and on the other hand, you're working on your comic. And by adding that little bit of structure, we're better able to figure out what we need to study, and we're balancing that with producing our stories. I did a video several weeks ago about time management, and the video features me using a comic book planner. The whole purpose of that planner is to get rid of distractions and offer a bit of structure so that you can focus on creating your comic. Well, I'm working on version 2 of that comic planner, and if you sign up to my email newsletter, then you'll be the first to be updated about when it's coming out, as well as a sneak preview. It features a pomodoro timer on the homepage, and I've been using it for the last several weeks, and it's been unbelievably effective. Without a planner, I probably would get distracted by studies and sketches and all that sort of stuff, and I wouldn't be working on my comic nearly as quickly as I am. Watch this video next to see if a comic planner is the missing ingredient for your workflow.